stands out because most people that give talks are really bad. But this guy is amazing. He's had a 20-year history in creating companies and building startups. 150 journalists have called him for his opinion on Brexit this morning. My favourite speaker, one of the few speakers that I want at every conference I do. This is going to be amazing. Please give a big round of applause for David Murray-Hundley. I'm not sure about the amazing bit. This is fine? Yep. So, how is everyone? Good? A bit of a weird Friday morning, eh? Right, I'm going to try and be really, really positive through this really negative subject that when Vincent and I were sat in Green Park about 3 months ago talking about this title, we kind of forgot what was the day before. So I'm going to try and be upbeat, but one thing I am going to do, because I've always wanted to do this, I'm going to selfie. Yeah, so I want everyone to look really, 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 really positive. Because it is positive. Right, so let's do this. Charge about £20 for a photo, so small. There you go, cool. Right, let's get on with business. So, I'm David Murray-Hundley. I'm the grumpy entrepreneur. Super grumpy this morning, a little bit. And actually, Mr. Worried this morning. In fact, my slides yesterday were completely different, and I had Mr. Happy. But anyway, where I come from, what was my background? So very briefly, I university and did some first web technology back in 94, 95, so tell you how old I am. And pretty good. And then I joined this company called Commerce One, and this little graph here is our stock price. So the top is 22 billion, and the red, I like to think, is when I moved to Monaco, became an idiot, and basically spent all the money. So we went chapter 11, funny enough, and yeah, I went bankrupt by the age of 30, which is probably a really good thing. I know most people can't say that, but I actually think it was a good thing. So today I have lots of companies, I'm involved with lots of companies, I get to do amazing stuff, meet amazing people, and generally, as I tell journalists, I don't feel like I really work for a living. In fact, the guy I just spent 2 hours on the train with actually asked what I did. So what are we going to talk about? So we're going to talk about companies that are going to die soon, which is unfortunate. There was this website that someone decided to start from 2000 to 2007, and basically, if your company was screwing up, instead of having PR companies go, how amazing it is and all this stuff, your employees would basically post stuff on this website, internal emails, etc. So you generally knew when you were probably 6 months away from your company going under. So Commerce One hit this, I think, probably, actually I think we had 9 months before we went chapter 11, so we were kind of ahead of the curve a little bit. But these days, I like to think we have to use a bit of common sense, and there's some signals out there that we kind of see. So this is my observations, doesn't mean I'm correct, but these are my observations. So first thing, cash flow. Really boring for most companies and most startups. But in December last year, for the first time in probably 6 years, suddenly getting emails going, can you lend me some money? Not investment, lend me some money. Oh, okay, what's that for? Well, basically we're trying to raise a couple of million quid, it's taking longer than we thought, and we're bust next month. But we are doing some turnover. Our burn rate is crazy, and oh, by the way, David, the good news is, if we don't go bust, we've scaled for the next chapter in our company's life. So we've already got staff, etc. So I sit there as a guy who's, kind of made the mistakes and go, well, okay, that's not the best position to come and ask me for money for, right? So literally, since the end of last year, I must have had so many companies that have come to me, and they think you're just going to lend money on great terms, even though next week they're in administration. Kind of doesn't make sense, right? So this is a really common one, and I'm seeing this more and more, and I think one of the things and I've been guilty of this with startups or even just very young companies is sometimes we spend our lives looking at the business plan and going, oh, we're going to raise money, right, next year. Well, I can tell you now, raising money this time next year will be really, really tough. And I thought it was tough anyway, but I think it's going to get a little bit tougher for some companies. We all recognise this guy, although the photo's not come up very well. What's the dog's name, by the way?
I met him at a party in Hollywood and I didn't know his name.
Never asked me. So Vincent said to me, when he was just about to start his Kickstarter campaign, am I doing the right thing? That was the question. And here's the thing about founders and CEOs. I meet a lot of founders and CEOs right now that don't really smile very much. Okay, sounds really basic, but they're like Formula One drivers who have the best, I want their job. And they are the grumpiest buggers on this planet. And I'm also meeting a lot of founders that have had investors knock their mojo out of them. Okay? And one of the things that I recognised quite early on is that you're kind of current today as a founder and CEO, etc., but you do have to kind of change and engage a little bit more. So one of the things I said to Vincent was, well, you've got a profile, and you actually have that fairy coat on as well. I said, we're in the middle of Mayfair. And the thing that really, really hit me is that if you actually watch Vincent's kind of track record, he's kind of changed with the times and kind of learned some lessons, etc. He's probably still going to do well, make some mistakes, etc. But it's a really important one. And there are some really good founders out there right now with some businesses that are struggling a little bit. And because the shareholders have beaten them up and all the good press PR they did a year ago, they kind of having to deliver, they're really, really losing who they are and what their identity is. And I'm seeing it really a lot at the moment. And you just kind of feel like you're their counsellor or something, which is sitting down in a chair. Bit of a history lesson. This is again about positioning. So a lot of you are young in here, and some of you are my age, which is really good. Back in the day, we used to have this thing called typewriters, okay? And then we had this company called Kodak that used to actually put film in a camera. I mean, how bizarre is that? I mean, God, and it wasn't on your phone. And we used to have this search engine that everyone used before Google. And then there was this phone with buttons, right? The thing about this is that I can imagine the boardroom in 1978 or something at the typewriter company. It's the biggest manufacturer in the world, and probably the guy sitting there going, yeah, check me out, I've got the whole market. And they're going, oh, there's this company called IBM, and they're going to do this thing called a desktop PC. And I can imagine going, oh, it's some young company, they won't do anything, all right? I'm sure he probably regrets that conversation. And this is the other thing I'm seeing right now, that stuff that worked for some companies a few years ago, they've been so focused on that product from then and the business then, that they've kind of gone, shit, it's 2016. Oh my God, and we're halfway through the year. And it's really common, because I think what happens in technology, and it just seems to increase every year, the speed with we change is just amazing. I thought it was amazing in the 90s, I think now it's just bonkers. And I'm watching it in the fintech space in particular, which is interesting because everyone jumped on the bandwagon and followed each other like sheep, and it's becoming a real issue. So I guess what I call it is the typewriter moment. Someone else called it the Kodak moment the other day. But don't be the typewriter company. It doesn't matter if you're a small company that just started out, or you're, as I saw it with the company last week, that are 15 years old, and the CEO founder who's built this business up to 60 million turnover with no investment sat with me and said, I don't know what to do next. Okay? And it's like treading water. And there's a lot of B2C companies right now that I deal with who are doing quite well, and they're stuck between this 1 million valuation company or 100 million, and they kind of go, we can feel it stepping away. We can feel ourselves that every day we're gradually sinking and sinking. And do you know what? Like everything in life, the more you think about it, the more you can't come up with the answer. Come to Jesus moment. I'm trying to think how to word this. There was an article, I think, out last week about a guy who had loads of investment in a business and then shut down the startup because he basically was just burning through his business plan. And I meet those companies that are challenged, those companies that I've just mentioned that speak to me about various things, and they say to me, we're kind of waiting for that eureka moment with our business. We're waiting to suddenly this miracle is going to happen and we're going to sell tons of stuff, or actually people are going to want our product. And the reality is When I worked for Chase, which we did Europe's first e-procurement solution online with Barclays and Chase, and we were doing that, and we got through $500 million waiting for that come to Jesus moment. Okay, that business spent the 500 million of shareholders' money, went down the tube. 6 months later, I'm at Commerce One, and we IPO at 22 billion with exactly the same product. And the fact of it is, it's all about timing. And I think there's a real thing out there that sometimes, and I've done it myself, I've gone, I'm just going to quit. Yeah, you're going to probably annoy your shareholders, and you need to get some value back. But the reality is, it's possibly sometimes better than to keep spending and burning through cash. Watch this space. I think this is going to happen to a lot of businesses in the next year. Okay, so I didn't really want to do this, but this morning I received some news. So I had 2 journalists on the phone this morning going, oh, so what do you think it's going to do? I have no idea, okay. This is obviously going to cause a challenge, all right, however you feel about it. There's obviously panic going on at the moment, and hopefully that will chill out a little bit, etc. And I actually just said to Vincent that actually, if we've just done the right thing, we might be the early adopters, right? Before everyone else in Europe suddenly starts failing. But I'm pretty sure that's going to cause some issues for businesses in certain areas. So I look at fintech, I'm involved with level 39, and I've been saying for months and months and months, what's the plan if this goes the other way? Now reality, and I didn't think it would be. And the fact of the matter is that if I was a fintech company right now, and there's a chap over there that I'm a shareholder in his business, it doesn't really affect us because our plans didn't really include mainland Europe. But there's a lot of companies out there that were looking for licensing from the FCA and European licensing, so it's going to just impact them overnight. And I don't think it's going to affect investment particularly, I would say. The people I talk to, and including myself, are not particularly worried about that right now, but it's obviously going to have an impact. And this is my last one, which is probably a common theme throughout. Pre-revenue. No, we're worth 10 million, David. I'm like, okay, I'm stupid. Yeah, and you know what? This will be the downfall. Okay, I've seen in the last 12 months companies offered buyouts. Get out. Infobank, who were AIM listed, and he got out when the Curve was doing that, and everyone was like, you're crazy, you're crazy, crazy. When the Curve did that, he was the guy that then went back to Infobank and tried to buy them out, all right? And I watched a company recently that I've just had an offer for my shares in the company, and my chairman said, take it, because they're probably going to stuff up, and actually they had a better offer this time last year, and it is really becoming an issue. And I watched the stuff I've just talked about, I watch companies literally waste 12 months of their lives with this number. And I'm like, Jesus, how much do you actually need? And actually, walk away with £1 million, right? And do your next thing. It's £1 million that you didn't have 12 months ago, 2 years ago, whatever. So I think there's going to be companies literally that will wait, or maybe you're already too late, and in 12 months' time, that's what's going to cause them to disappear. So to wrap up, okay, so trying to be positive, and that's just been such a negative 10 minutes. I am grumpy, so. My thing is that it's interesting times out there. I did a talk at Google earlier this year about the bubble bursting. And if you look at the West Coast, and I think sometimes in technology, certainly in Europe, we like to look at the US as this, like, it's amazing out there, okay? And the fact of the matter is, if you go to the West Coast right now, they are firing people left, right, and centre, and it's actually a repeat of what I saw in 2000. I think the media here, not all media, but some media here with technology companies, really overhype. And I think Mike Butcher put a thing up on Sunday on his Facebook about, was it, whilst on the phone to a journalist, don't lie to them about where your business is, because I'll Google you, and about your PR. So it's going to be tricky out there. I think if you're smart and don't follow the sheep, you're going to be okay. It might take a little bit longer. If your heart's in it and you're smiling and you're feeling really, really good about it, then go for it, okay? If it's affecting your life whatsoever and you're a little bit okay, this doesn't feel right, and actually, do you know what? Gut instinct is responsible for a lot of things, then it's probably your signal. So I want to say thank you very much. It was very brief. Thank you very much for everyone for listening. I'm not sure, do we have time for questions?
Yes.
Okay. Fire away.
I'll do the first one. So people like you and Gary Vaynerchuk are big fans of create a business which creates revenue, rather than trying to do a free plan and raise money which may never come.
Yeah.
So if people here are starting out their companies, what sort of ideas or things would you recommend they do in order to create revenue?
Boring companies.
Okay.
Sounds really silly. Boring companies work, right? I think we overcomplicate everything, and that's partly down to the technology, right? The reason I went for revenue, by the way, is I used to be part of those companies that were based on Gartner producing something saying that in 2300 or whatever, the market was going to be worth X trillion, gazillions, yeah. So our price on NASDAQ was, was based upon that. And then I realised that actually, the ones that make revenue are actually sometimes then the more simple businesses, the ones that aren't overcomplicating it, and actually, they might organically grow for 500k the first year, $1 million next year, or whatever. But you've got, when I invest at IW, first thing we look at is revenue. Now, there's an amazing team, so we have a business at the moment, we've got an amazing team, amazing board, ex-Sony CEO, and just amazing people, and they've done one deal. But that counterbalances it, because we know they will do revenue next year. But I would keep it simple. I think we, don't do the typical thing we do, and I see a lot, and I did it myself, is, a few years ago it was cloud computing. Ooh, everyone's doing cloud computing, which to me was hosting, but hey. And then everyone, was doing fintech, and then everyone was doing payments, and then everyone was doing this, and I'm like, do what you're happy and comfortable with, and do what you're knowledgeable about and passionate about, okay? So if it's the widget, I would say the FLEA on the dog. So it was something that was given to me by a very well-known person. He said, be the FLEA on the dog. Because if you're the FLEA on the dog, you're probably going to get taken out with the dog anyway, right? But there's not many big dogs around. Because if there was, it would be really, really boring. So yeah, keep it simple.
Cool. I think we take the questions off the slides.
Yeah.